Welcome to our Weather Impact Report, where we take a look at the top weather stories here in Georgia and around the nation. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss. From shaking ground to stormy skies, we are tracking it all this week. Earthquakes rattling parts of the country, severe weather leaving behind damage. And here in Georgia, we just wrapped up a rare stretch of quiet, mild weather last week. But first, closure and a heartbreaking story. It's been nearly 7 months since Hurricane Helen devastated parts of Tennessee. And for one family, there is renewed heartbreak. Volunteers found the body of a missing man since the storm struck. Samantha Allen spoke with the man's brother.
When raging floodwaters from Helen inundated portions of Washington County, Tennessee, Gary Cloyd lost everything: his home, his belongings, and his brother Steve.
The moment I was told. I mean, he's not left me since the flood. I could feel him.
His brother's body wasn't found until Thursday as a volunteer crew was clearing debris.
It's closure for our family. My sister-in-law can now have some peace. You know, if they wouldn't have found him, she had to live with it for 7 years before she could even get a death certificate.
Gary and Steve didn't grow up together, but their bond in recent years made this loss even more difficult.
We went probably 55 years not knowing each other. 3 years later, when the flood hit, they were still here. I had no regrets at all.
Now, Gary says the names Joe Stanley and Brandon Chambers, the men who found Steve, are family.
I want to give credit that has started since day one. And he had devoted his every day of his since then to finding Steve, and that guy's named Brandon Chambers. He was part of the search and rescue crew.
As recovery continues, Gary says healing takes time, but closure is a start.
I was blessed. Something that was on my mind I hadn't talked to nobody about had happened, and now it's stripped away. I really don't know if it's ever going to be fixed. It's still in my mind, but I ain't gonna quit trying.
Searchers are still looking for Nancy Tucker, the only other person listed as missing from the hurricane. 18 people died in Tennessee from that storm. Crews in Texas rescued a man who was trapped in his car Tuesday due to rising floodwaters. The rescue effort was caught on camera. You can see it there. The man called for help after water started rapidly flooding his car. When officers arrived, the car was in a creek 100 yards away from the road. Rescuers managed to break a window and pull the man to safety. The car was swept down the creek a short time later. A powerful storm swept through New Orleans early Wednesday morning, leaving a trail of problems behind. The intense system knocked out power to thousands, triggered dangerous flash flooding, and caused damage across several neighborhoods. This is what it looked like along the lakefront before sunup. Tropical storm force wind gusts pushed the water onto the walkway. Commuters drove through blinding rain at the height of the storm. It was especially difficult over raised highways and bridges. Across the river, strong winds knocked over power poles. The National Weather Service confirmed that straight line winds caused the damage. Schools in the area were dismissed due to the outages. In Jefferson Parish, officials there said that the hospital was running off their generator after they lost power. The other hazard was flooding. Heavy rain caused widespread flooding across the entire area, forcing drivers to make a decision to drive through it or find another way to get where they were going. Many areas in southern Louisiana received 4 to 7 inches of rainfall within 48 hours. Well, we might have had quiet weather here in Georgia last week, but people are still talking about the unusual quake on Saturday morning. Did you feel it? A 4.1 earthquake hit Greenback, Tennessee, and the shaking didn't stop there. People all across metro Atlanta say they felt the jolt too. Take a look at this time lapse from our Blue Ridge sky camera during the earthquake. It's easy to miss, but if you watch closely, you'll see the camera gently shaking from side to side right when it hits. The 4.1 magnitude quake was centered near Greenback, over 100 miles away from Atlanta. Still, many people across North Georgia felt the tremor. We spoke to a professor from Georgia Tech to explain why the shaking traveled so far.
Here in the East Coast, our rocks are much older, and in that case, they are more competent. So like whenever there is a seismic event of, let's say, magnitude 4 event, you on the West Coast you probably only can feel within 50 miles, and here in the East Coast, because the wave doesn't attenuate as much, so they can propagate much further distance.
Dr. Payne says while aftershocks are possible, people in Metro Atlanta should not be too concerned, but it's a good reminder to brush up on earthquake safety. Drop, cover, and hold on. While people in Metro Atlanta were rattled by the tremors, in East Tennessee, the shaking hit even closer to home. Our Knoxville sister station, WBIR, went to Tuckaleechee Caverns, where the world's most sensitive seismic station captured every jolt. And they found out even the experts who monitor earthquakes for a living felt this one firsthand.
I'm here at Tuckaleechee Cavern, home to the most sensitive seismic station on the planet. And this right here is the earthquake it recorded that so many of us felt here in East Tennessee.
Is it right here?
Yeah. A 4.1 magnitude earthquake shook people in East Tennessee. Even Benjamin Vananda, an intelligence contractor who works on the station's hardware.
That's the first one I've ever felt. Working with this stuff for such a long time, it's kind of crazy that first time I've seen them all over the place, but never been shook by one.
The station's main goal is to check for nuclear warhead testing, but it can do a lot more.
It can detect and pinpoint any atmospheric or subterranean nuclear blast directly to the point of the initial explosion anywhere around the world, or any epicenter of any major earthquake anywhere on the planet from right here.
So you see it's nothing, bang.
While earthquakes aren't uncommon, he says this one was about 25 kilometers deep.
We have ancient fault lines here. They'll move gradually, but with one like this, that was a shift for sure. So that's why it was felt all over the place.
Vananda says now there's a chance for aftershocks.
It's possible. It sure is possible. And it looks like that there was one, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to see it on there, but there probably will be, especially since these are super deep fault lines. So once they start to break loose a little bit, it's kind of like snowballing downhill. Once it starts, it'll probably continue for a little bit.
He says just like earthquakes can't be predicted, it's the same for aftershocks.
Well, we weren't the only ones that felt our walls shake this weekend. At first, some people thought it was nearby construction, maybe a loud neighbor or even their own dishwasher. Our friends in Knoxville also spoke to people who felt the rumble firsthand.
A 4.1 magnitude earthquake shook parts of East Tennessee Saturday morning, surprising many people. WBIR received hundreds of calls from across the region just moments after the shaking.
We just experienced an earthquake. It might have lasted 3 seconds, but it shook hard.
Georgia Morris says she and her boyfriend live above a parking garage, but they've never felt any shakes.
We've never felt the construction. We've never felt the parking garage before. And I said, I think that was an earthquake. And my boyfriend was like, there's no possible way. And I'm like, no, I legit think that's what happened.
Other people tell us they thought it was construction too.
I live over by construction, so we were like, was that a blast or an earthquake? Because I'm from Florida, I've never felt that, and the whole house just was creaking. It was weird.
Kahari Brown says the earthquake surprised him, and that this is the first one he's ever felt.
It's funny, I was with my guys at the house, and I closed the dishwasher, and I thought I closed it so hard that it caused a shake, but then we realized it was actually the earth, so that was pretty cool.
Others tell me they thought it was their neighbors causing the movement.
Everything started shaking, and I thought it was our downstairs neighbor's washer and dryer, and it was not.
Well, check out this video shared by a viewer in Charlotte. You can see her home shaken by the 4.1 magnitude earthquake. The quake was scary for a lot of people, and officials say that they are trying to figure out who was hurt, if there were any. As of right now, there are no reports, but they are looking for any reports of damage. They're still working to figure out if there was any impacts. Officials say more than 40,000 people reported feeling the earthquake. If you want to report your experience, you can fill out the Did You Feel It report online. A link is on our website, 11alive.com. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, says it's retiring its billion-dollar weather and climate disasters database. This tool has tracked the cost of major weather events for years, but now it's coming to an end. The database will be archived but won't get any updates after 2024. NOAA is also cutting back on other services, mainly because of staffing reductions. This comes as the Trump administration continues to push to shut down federal programs linked to climate issues. We are now in peak severe weather season across the U.S., and since 1980, 2/3 of the costliest weather disasters happened between April and September. But this year, there are growing fears from former leaders at the National Weather Service that Americans' lives could be at risk due to recent and proposed cuts that have led to fewer forecasters watching the skies and the seas. NBC News meteorologist Chase Kane has a story.
Right at dinner time on April 17th,
we have a tornado warning issued for Pottawatomie County.
Supercell storms started producing tornadoes across eastern Nebraska.
I was really scared last night.
Our Omaha affiliate reporting homes and cars badly damaged, windows blown out, roofs ripped off. One family caught off guard.
We didn't think anything of it, and then my wife started screaming at me, so we hightailed it to the basement. It was about 20 seconds after I got down there that it ripped through.
Luckily, everyone survived, but with only seconds to spare, is it possible they could have gotten an earlier warning? What we do know from an official bulletin is that the Omaha National Weather Service office didn't have enough staff to launch regular weather balloons that day. Only one instead of two, which meant their data was hours old and only showed the threat of hail, not tornadoes.
And that's impossible to forecast when and where. Not having that data could have saved a life or created a warning that had greater lead time. But if you do it over and over and over again, I can promise you that not having that data is going to be a problem when it comes to forecasting.
And it's all because of a political tornado. DOJ federal employee buyouts and cuts earlier this year, leading to that, quote, lack of office staffing. And now in a rare move, every living former director of the National Weather Service, dating back to President Reagan, is warning that President Trump's proposal to cut NOAA funding by nearly 30% will lead to a, quote, needless loss of life. We reached out to the White House, and a Commerce spokesperson said, in part, NOAA does not anticipate any disruptions in services as a result of staff reorganizations, and the NWS will continue to meet its mission of ensuring public safety amid critical weather events. But a former NWS director disagrees.
We are generating kind of a Swiss cheese weather service. We have holes throughout the weather service now that are not well thought out.
Republican Congressman Mike Flood represents the area hit by those 6 tornadoes on April 17th with a short-staffed weather office. So he called the White House to get more meteorologists to Omaha.
For decades, the National Weather Service personnel have not been classified as public safety. They are clearly public safety, and that's something that we need to do in Congress.
The last NOAA administrator, Rick Spinrad, also tallied that so far, staff cuts have cost the Weather Service 7,000 years of collective experience.
It's like having incoming missiles and not being able to tell anyone when they're coming or where they're coming.
A NOAA spokesperson told NBC News work is underway to restore services at local forecast offices around the country.
There are things in NOAA that I'm sure could be improved, but you don't do that improvement with a hatchet and just randomly cut large chunks. Weather in this nation should not be a political issue.
Recent trends suggest the Atlantic hurricane season will start earlier this year. Officially, the season runs June 1st through November 30th, but some recent forecasting models suggest the possibility of a head start to the season. The potential for storm development is showing specifically in the Western Caribbean, where conditions appear more favorable. At least one named storm has formed before June 1st in 7 of the last 10 years. Some years have even seen several named storms before the season's official start. Because of that, the National Hurricane Center in 2021 decided to start issuing tropical weather outlooks in mid-May. Early storm activity has largely been to unusually warm waters in the Atlantic, Caribbean, or Gulf basins during the spring. Even with an early start to hurricane season and some important funding cuts making headlines, remember, a little preparation can go a long way. Now's a great time to double check those emergency kits, make sure your plans are up to date, and stay connected with the latest forecasts. We'll be right here to keep you ahead of the storm and hopefully bring you some calmer weather updates too. With your Weather Impact Report, I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss.